Welcome to the Pot of Inquiry. My guest this week is Salima Edelstein, and we are going to talk about a topic that I'm probably pretty sure you haven't heard of, and that is Sufism and Sufi traditions. We always talk about the four pillars in longevity and biohacking, the pillars being 1, sleep, 2, nutrition, 3, exercise, and 4, spirituality, which encompasses a lot of different things. And there's no ranking order there. They're all very important. But in this conversation, we discuss the Sufi traditions and how it is somewhat, I guess you could call it, a path to enlightenment. Certainly it's a way to live a better life if you can master your own control of your ego and these types of things. So I think if you know something about different spiritual ideologies, you might be very interested in learning more about Sufism. So please enjoy this conversation I have with Salima Edelstein.
Welcome to the Pot of Inquiry. Ready for some thought-provoking cerebral whipping and the destruction of ridiculous medical dogma? Want to shift those stale, moldy old paradigms? Well then, don that thinking cap of yours, get down in the cave, and join our host, Dr. Stephen Barrett, for this week's episode. Let's start spelunking.
All right, everyone, welcome to the Pot of Inquiry. I have a very interesting guest and a very interesting topic. Actually, I'm going to admit right at the beginning of this is that I know almost zero about what we're going to talk about today, so it should be very informative, and I'm excited to learn about Sufism. And my guest today is Salima Edelstein. And did I say that right? Is Edelstein or Edelstein?
Yeah,
Okay.
you said
All
it
right.
exactly right.
I get. All right. I got to make sure that I get your name correct and whatnot. So, we had a good chat a couple of weeks ago, and you kind of gave me a little bit of a thumbnail sketch about what we're going to talk about. But for the audience, let's just dive in and why don't you tell us what Sufism is, and then we'll get your story and how you got into this. Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
So Sufism is a path of love. It's
Okay.
a path of attraction. It allows the heart to become purified and beautified through what we call divine qualities. Those
Okay.
qualities of love and peace and mercy and compassion and wisdom, because there's a source of that that's sort of beyond what we might know. I grew up in Cambridge, so intellectual knowledge has always been sort of my go-to. But in Sufism, I was introduced to a heart's wisdom that went way beyond what my mind was able to fully grasp. It took a deep journey. It's like a journey home into the home of God within you and outside of you. It took me into living a very divinely guided life. And what I mean by that is a life that is guided by not so much what I think I want, but what is best for me in my life.
Okay.
And that's what Sufism does. It takes you on a journey through all these different worlds that are beyond sort of the life that we know here, and takes you into places of what we call higher consciousness that
Okay.
allows you to have a larger perspective on what's going on in the world, that allows you to have better relationships with the people that you love, better communication with the people that you might not understand completely or might be different than you. So it opens up different experiences that takes you from places of separation
Mm-hmm.
into places of oneness and unity. And in that oneness and unity, Sufism opens the door to a connection with God and a connection to yourself that brings peace and love, mercy, justice, freedom, and beauty, so that you begin to see the world through different eyes.
Now,
We say,
so let me interrupt you so that I can get on, a same understanding of what you're telling me. Sufism has been around for a long, long time, correct?
yes.
When did it start, roughly?
So, Sufism is a mystical path, and many people disagree about when it started.
Okay.
Some people say that, and this is what I believe, that it actually started from the time of the first man, from the time of Adam, when God placed his light, a spark of divinity, inside the human being. And that
Okay.
was the beginning of Sufism, where we begin to know who we are as that spark of light of divinity. Other people will say to you that Sufism started as a mystical path of Islam. And
Right.
at the time of Muhammad, there were people that used to sit outside where his house was, and he would give what we call secret or mystical teachings beyond the sort of law teachings of what Islam and being a Muslim is all about, but really how to connect deeply.
So help me understand then, Sufism predated, in your opinion, predated the establishment of Islam by many, many years, hundreds of thousands of years, if we go back to Adam and Eve and the, you know, the book of Genesis. But my question is, albeit there's compelling evidence that what you just said, it's associated with the Islamic practice, but it's really not part of Islam. Am I correct on that? Or is it just like these two kind of married up with one another at one point in time? Help me delineate that.
Yeah, most religious institutions, if you will, have a mystical component to it.
Okay.
So in Judaism, for example, it's the Kabbalah. In Christianity, it's the mystic meditations, the mystic contemplations, contemplatives. In Islam, the mystical tradition is known as Sufism. Many born Muslims might not even understand or know that Sufism exists
Okay.
within religion.
Now, can you become, for lack of a better way to put it, a disciple of Sufism without being Muslim?
Absolutely.
So there's a parallel maybe to Buddhism where you can have Jewish people that are also Buddhist and um, other religions. It doesn't preclude, one doesn't preclude the other, right?
Now, what it's not about exclusion and it's not about compulsion. It's
Okay.
about attraction, right?
Okay. All
That
right.
our heart is attracted to something. When I first got introduced to Sufism, it was through a Muslim sheikh.
Okay.
Now, did I know anything about Islam before I met him? Absolutely not. Did I know anything about Sufism before I met him? Absolutely not. But what he carried was a love and a compassion and a light that I was able to recognize that said, whatever it is that he carries, I want to know more about. I want to understand more about. I want to experience. And the beauty of Sufism is it's not something that you could read about in a book. It's something that passes on from teacher to student, from
Okay.
guide to student. So you learn about it through experiential knowledge, through different practices, through different studies of what we call stations of the way that allows us to understand more about that divine light within us and how to access it and
Okay.
how to connect to that.
Interesting. Now, in doing a little research for this so that I would be semi-intelligent with you, and I emphasize semi, okay. There's a concept, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, Fana or Fana, where it's the,
Fana,
say that again?
fana.
Fana. Okay. So this concept is basically an annihilation of the ego. Am I correct on that?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Yes,
And
because
so,
there's a difference between running your life through the I, right? Running your life through what it is that I want
mhm.
and establishing your life in what it is that God wants from you. what it is that something higher than yourself, greater than yourself, wants from you. And it's that connection that makes a difference in your life. It's that connection that makes your relationship more loving, that makes your life more fulfilling and more satisfying, that makes you feel like, oh, I have a purpose here now. I know what my life is all about. And it
So,
gives you peace in times when everything around you is not peaceful.
so one of the things that is proposed to be one of the beneficial aspects of psychedelics is that there is a dissolution of ego.
Mhm.
And so when the ego dissolves, then it can kind of let your true spirit see what it really is. Is that kind of what we're talking about here?
It is, and it can be done without any drugs,
Okay. All right.
right?
I like
Like,
to
yeah,
prefer the term medicines, but
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Okay, so when you have this dissolution of ego, that's a pretty hard thing to do. I mean, because we're all almost every human is ego driven to some extent. You know, I mean, there are some people that are consumed by their own ego, and their ego is far bigger than their brain. But how do you go about that aspect? What is it in Sufism that you practice in order to try to say, okay, I got to dissolve this ego because it's kind of interrupting my connection with the higher level, so to speak.
Right. It's a step-by-step process. So
Okay,
it doesn't happen in a moment.
right.
And the first step is awareness. So
Okay,
we need to be aware of what's operating within us. Is
okay.
my ego operating within us? And where is my ego leading me to? Is an outside voice operating within us? Yeah. Have I been
Mhm,
told, oh, you're not good, you're not going to be successful. If you make a mistake, it's the end of the world. Those are sometimes outside voices
mhm.
that will affect the ego,
Okay, all
right?
right.
We call it nafs in Arabic, in Sufism, NAFS, right?
Okay,
And then there's what we call the voice of God within us.
okay.
And what we're being trained in Sufism is to discern those three voices so that we know, oh, this is my ego, this is my I talking,
All right.
this is the God within me talking, right? The divine
All right.
speaking through me.
Okay.
This is an outside voice. Oh, yeah, I remember when my teacher said that, right?
Right,
Or
right,
I remember when my parents punished me because of that,
right,
right?
right.
Right.
Gotcha. So,
And it starts with that discernment. And
okay.
and there's a difference. What happens in the heart is when the heart experiences truth,
Mhm.
there's actually a physical sensation that happens to most people. There's an aha moment or an awakening, or sometimes people experience goosebumps when they hear truth. Well, that's what happens as we discern these voices within us. And we start to recognize maybe, just maybe, the ego doesn't know all that we think we know.
So would that be kind of similar to the feeling of love?
Yeah.
Because that kind of what you described, that you have this emotional event that actually causes some physical response, sensation, for lack of
E-
a better way to put it.
Exactly. And for me, when I talk about Fana,
Hmm.
annihilation tends to scare people. I'm going to annihilate my ego,
Right.
right? And the actual experience of it for those of our students that have gone through it is an experience where love becomes so embracing.
Before we continue with this great discussion, I just want to take a quick break to acknowledge this week's sponsor. I'm constantly exploring new avenues to enhance well being and address any health concerns. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce you to an exciting supplement called STEM Regen, which I take daily and genuinely believe could revolutionize your health journey as well. STEM Regen stands out as a game changer in the realm of wellness. Crafted from 5 potent plant extracts, it boasts a remarkable ability to stimulate the release of your body's own stem cells from your red bone marrow. Why is this significant? Well, stem cells are the superheroes of our body's natural repair system. They possess the extraordinary capacity to morph into various cell types, aiding in tissue regeneration and repair. As we age, the quantity of circulating stem cells in our system reduces significantly, impairing our body's ability to heal and rejuvenate itself effectively. Stem Regen steps in to counter this decline by kickstarting the release of stem cells into circulation, thereby bolstering your body's innate repair mechanisms. Once unleashed into your bloodstream, these mobilized stem cells actively seek out areas of damage or injury, initiating the healing process. By incorporating Stem Regen into your daily routine, you're essentially empowering your body to tap into its own regenerative prowess more efficiently. I firmly believe that Stem Regen could be a valuable addition to your wellness regimen, especially if you're seeking to fortify overall health and vitality, accelerate tissue repair, or expedite recovery from injury or illness. This first of its kind stem cell mobilizer is changing the game in regenerative medicine. Don't wait to unleash your body's innate healing capabilities. Visit stemregen.co/Dr. Steven, that's with a PH, and use the code SBPOD to get a 15% discount off your first order of Stem Regen.
That it dissolves the ego.
So instead of trying to forcibly destruct it, you kind of do other things that it just is a byproduct and kind of goes away.
You love it to death.
Okay. There you go. Yeah. All right.
And that's why we say in Sufism, there's an expression, die before you die.
Okay.
Because our spirit still lives after we die, right? We all know that now.
Right.
So why have that experience in your physical death when you can have the experience in your life now? And that's part of what Sufism offers, is that opportunity to die before you die, or to have that experience of love, where the beauty of love becomes the norm for your life. So we say that the transformation in Sufism is where our eyes become the eyes of God, meaning we see through love, we see through beauty, we see through compassion and mercy, right? And for all our other senses. So that's the transformation and what we call the beautification that happens in Sufism.
So let me go back and kind of repackage this a little bit. And this is maybe a very bad way to put it, but one of the things as humans get older, they tend to have some ego disillusion, where it's not as important to be the hard driving guy in your 40s as it is, the more understanding grandfather later on in life, those types of things. But when you have a student that starts becoming interested in Sufism and they want to go through this annihilation of the ego, I'm sure that number one, it's very individual. Some people may take decades and other people may take years or some variance, right? A lot of individuality there as far as getting this accomplished. And some egos are probably so big, it's like a David versus Goliath thing versus other folks that have more, moderate egos and whatnot. So when they start on this path, is there a general time frame when it takes people to, and I know that's a really tough question because everybody's different. Everybody has different abilities for spirituality and these type of things. But do you get what I'm kind of asking you in a general sense?
In a general sense, it's really about the person's intention and their commitment. Right?
Okay.
There's a beautiful Sufi story about a man that was trying to dig for water, and he had a shovel and was in his yard and would do 2 shovels full, and then would move to another spot and do 2 shovels full, and then would move to another spot. And somebody came along and said, what are you doing digging all these shallow holes?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I'm looking for water. And they said to him, what if instead of digging all these shallow holes, you stayed with one and you dug deep? And that's really what will make the difference.
That's a very great analogy, actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so people try to find faster ways to shovel sometimes because they want to take a shortcut, I would imagine, right?
Yeah,
Now, you said to me when we talked before that you had been in transcendental meditation for like 25 years.
that's correct. Yes.
That did that give you kind of an advantage when you started in this path?
I don't think so. I love transcendental meditation. It's a wonderful meditation path. But what I discovered in Sufism was that in transcendental meditation, my heart wasn't involved at all.
Hmm.
I,
Okay.
I had some beautiful meditative experiences and higher states of consciousness during transcendental meditation, but it really didn't move me deeply into my heart, into those states of oneness and unity and peace. So
Right.
when I meditated, I had peace, but then I went out into life and my life wasn't so peaceful, right?
Right. Right.
And I wasn't look when I was meditating, it was all close my eyes and have these beautiful experiences. But then
Hmm.
I'd have to open my eyes and lead my life. And my life, to be honest with you, was filled with worry. I worried about every small thing you possibly could worry about, including,
Right.
did I leave the stove on when I left the house in the morning? Ridiculous things, but
Right. Right.
that was the state of my consciousness in real life, if you will, when I wasn't meditating. And that never changed in meditation. And when I started to work with this Sufi master and taking me into my heart and really seeing what's what's this worry covering over, right?
Right. Right.
What is it protecting? And looking at releasing it and letting go, because part of Sufism is a surrender and a letting go. And
Right.
how do I let go of it? Through all the different Sufi practices that your audience can learn about in our free offering to you. When I
So,
was doing those practices, things were just releasing and letting go.
okay.
And probably the most striking thing was places I didn't even know that were in separation in my heart. So, for example, I grew up in a Jewish tradition,
Okay.
and here I was in Palestine, in East Jerusalem, with who were, I was always told, were my enemies, right?
Okay. Right.
And now what's going on in the world in terms of
Right. Right.
what's
Yeah, it's a
happening
big,
in the
big,
Middle
it's a big
East.
deal right
It's
now.
a big deal right now.
Right.
But what I learned there is it wasn't about the outside, it was about something inside that was in conflict in me.
Okay.
And what Sufism did is transform that conflict into peace so that I was not only no longer afraid of the Palestinian people that I was living with, I actually saw them as my brothers and sisters, saw how similar we are as human beings.
Right.
That fear disappeared.
So that was part of the surrender for you,
That's right. Yeah.
right? So once you were able to kind of just let it go a little bit, that's kind of what the ego is about, is letting it go. Like saying to yourself, you think you're really important, but you're not that damn important.
Right.
There's hundreds of millions of people running around on this planet that are just like you. They're really not that much different. So what is it that makes you feel so much better about yourself when in reality that's probably just all artificial anyhow and getting in your way?
Right. And it's a funny thing about the ego. The ego likes to be the best, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And one of the things that it learns in Sufism is there's something better than it. So it's willing to trade up,
Okay.
it's willing to let go to find something even better. And that's the process that allows us to surrender, right?
Okay.
Because
Now,
we're literally trading something. It's like, I don't know, it's like we say we make a mistake, and instead of beating yourself up for the mistake, you learn from the mistake,
Right.
and then God's mercy rains down on you and changes you from that mistake.
Well, it takes a lot of pressure off,
Yeah.
a lot of weight it goes off of your shoulders when you don't have to be perfect and you can admit that you make mistakes all the time and that's just part of who you are. And
It's
if you're
just
going to
part
be
of human being,
right,
right?
right, right.
You
And if
don't
you're going
know
to
any human being. I don't know about
right.
you, but I have yet to meet a human being who hasn't made a mistake.
Yeah, there's that old joke, I made a mistake. I thought I was wrong one time.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a good one,
But
right?
yeah. So the fact that you were raised in a very traditional Jewish upbringing, and like you said, with basically the surrender about the Palestinians, because you were programmed in one way, I'm sure, right? I mean, just as they're programmed in another way and that type of thing. But you know, how difficult was it for you because what there's not a lot of warm and fuzzy sometimes between Jewish traditions and Islamic traditions, and they tend to go against each other quite a bit, at least geopolitically, right? So was it pretty difficult for you to accept this coming from a Muslim sheikh, or
So the first thing that this Muslim sheikh did when he met me
yeah,
was he gave me a huge hug. And if
okay,
you know anything about the Muslim tradition, you know that sheikhs don't hug women,
right? They're not
right?
supposed to touch right,
Right. It's
yeah,
just not, it's just part of the protocol, if you will, part of the culture.
right,
So I was already in that very first meeting, the paradigms that I believed were
hmm,
already starting to shatter in
okay,
just that very, very first incident. And his words to me were, "My holy daughter, I am so happy to see you." And I was like, what is he talking about?
hmm,
As I
right,
began to, like, my mind began to do a double take, if you will.
right,
And then most of what happens for any human being when we enter into what I'll just call out of our comfort zone,
okay,
right? There's something internally that happens in our being that opens up possibilities of what we don't know. And it was in that possibility of entering into the unknown that the change happened and the transformation happened. And because it was based in love, it became very easy.
okay,
I had to overcome my own fear,
right,
but love has a way of overpowering fear.
okay. So you didn't see this as an Islamic versus Judaic issue. It was just this person came along and shared love with me, and that kind of how am
Not only,
I?
yeah, not only shared love, but shared a way of touching a deep longing in my heart for not only love, but for peace,
Mhm.
a deep longing to um, feel a bigger part of what this world is all about and what we're doing in it, a bigger sense of why things happen, why we have this polarity,
Right,
right?
right. So you mentioned earlier about that there's certain things that you can do, Sufi, let's call them Sufi practices that can alter the states of consciousness. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because I think that's really a very huge, it's a very huge topic in almost the history of many religions where they have, there's different books that you can read where there's compelling theory. I won't say evidence, compelling theory that the use of certain. And now a message from our sponsor. I've been taking Nature's Marvels bioregulatory peptides for more than 3 years now on a very consistent basis. It's an integral part into my wellness journey, and I can't imagine not even going on this journey without that. These are designed with cutting-edge science to optimize and restore your body's natural processes. After 3 years, I can say without a doubt, this isn't another wellness product that just gets pushed to the back of the cabinet. This is the real deal for human optimization and longevity. Start your journey today with Nature's Marvels. Our website's below. Plant-based medicines allowed an opening of consciousness, or, to change the consciousness so that basically they could realize more of what was within their own, like, subconscious versus what was maybe suppressed into a non-acknowledged area in that person's being. It's a clumsy way of asking, what do you all do to alter these states of consciousness? If it's not drugs or psychedelics, what is it that Sufism embodies so that can be done?
And it's really about the elevation of our consciousness. So
Okay.
that the practices, when we move from our beautiful minds into the wisdom of our heart through sound, through sacred sound.
Okay.
Sound has a vibration.
That's true.
Sacred sound and sacred language has a vibration and effect on our nervous system,
Right.
on our cells, and on our being. So our practices are based on sacred sound and the repetition of certain phrases, if you will, that help bring about the states of these different higher states of consciousness, but also the way of removing what we call in Sufism the veils that cover over the essence of who we are. And some of those veils come from the defenses that we've built up through our variety of different experiences in our lives, right? Somebody says something to us that we don't like, and all of a sudden, one of the bricks of our defense wall goes up.
Right.
And these phrases that we use, there's one of the practices, it's called the weird. And at first when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, this must be a really weird practice.
Right.
But it's actually spelled W-I-R-D. And it means the source or the watering hole.
Okay.
And through these 4 chants, we're taken through these different experiences of our heart and different worlds within our heart into the source within us, that watering hole within us that nourishes our being.
All right. So is there any use of breath work in this arena?
In some of the practices, we'll be using different, it's called a dhikr, which means a remembrance. So we're remembering who we are. And in that, we use a lot of breath work to help do that. Some is as simple as just the first sound of ah, right? And that first sound of ah, when we say it, is like a deep sigh in our breath that begins to open our heart. And you'll notice that different sounds have different effects in different parts of our body. And in Sufism, when we're trying to open our heart, that first sound or breath is the sound that begins to open the heart. To explore, we say, I was a hidden treasure that desired to be known. So I placed my secret in the heart of my beloveds.
So there is some pretty compelling evidence from a true physiological standpoint that sound and humming and singing can actually increase the effect of the vagal nerve on managing the parasympathetic versus sympathetic. So the amount of stress that you're having, and so there's definitely some very real things that happen to your physiology when you do that, like with breath work. Of course, there are ways with breath work that you can become, almost have like psychedelic types experiences with some of the, holotropic breath work and things like that. So I think there is definitely a real tie between the spirituality of what you all are doing and the actual physiology of what's making a person feel better.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
it's just, so I think when you break it down like that, a lot of times people will, sometimes when they hear some things like this, they're not real open-minded. They think, oh, that's just woo-woo stuff and blah blah blah. But the answer is that like you mentioned, music. We know that music has a tremendous effect on cortical function, and it's been proven with functional MRIs where, certain types of music can upregulate executive function. And so there's a very real aspect to those things. And I think when people can equate some of these things that you're doing in a quote spiritual practice to something that is physiological, it makes them a little bit more maybe have more acceptance of like, well, I need to look at this a little bit because yeah, there's some definite physiological play here, you know.
Mhm. Absolutely. And that's why I
Yeah.
said earlier that when you experience it, then you know it's not just me telling you, but you
Right.
actually have the experience. We had one student, if I can just tell a short story, who
Sure.
was doing her master's practicum in a woman's prison. And she was teaching a Sufi practice on forgiveness, which is chanting a certain phrase. And she wanted to experiment as part of her master's thesis what would happen if she not only used a Sufi phrase, but then used three other different phrases
Mhm.
for forgiveness, and just to see what effect it would have on these women prisoners.
Right.
And what she found is the collectively the I forgot how many women she was working with said that after they said the Sufi phrase for forgiveness and repeated it over a certain amount of time, they finally felt forgiveness in their heart for all the things that had gotten them in prison.
But they didn't with the same type of message delivered in a little bit different mechanism.
Yeah, they said they've been trying, I'm
Right.
sorry, they've tried all these other techniques.
Right. Right.
None.
Yeah. That's
And
very
they said,
interesting.
and they said they were a little skeptical, to go to your point about, I don't know, I don't, it's a foreign language. I don't know how to pronounce it right. I'm not sure
Right.
if it's going to work. I mean, they had all those
Right. Right.
thoughts
Right.
right
Right.
before, but they were
Well,
willing to try it and then had that experience. And I, that for me was just such a beautiful example
hmm.
of the effect of what the Sufi practices can do for you.
No, that's fascinating. And I think there's a lot of merit to that because you can see um, illustrations of this in other arenas. I'm trying to think about like opera music right now, and some operas that are sung in not the original language lose
Right.
the whole feeling, right? And when you hear it, let's say it was an Italian opera, for example, and you hear it in Italian and you don't even understand Italian, it resonates with you in a way that the English version may not at all. And you don't understand that language. So I kind of get that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So tell us about your university and how folks can follow this and maybe learn more about it and maybe even develop the practice of Sufism.
Sure. We started the university about 25 years ago. And at first it was in a physical location. And then during COVID, we became an international university. So you don't you can participate via Zoom. You can find out more about it at the sufiuniversity.org. We
Okay.
offer Masters of Divinity degrees in 5 different areas. So you can study Sufi studies, or you can study spiritual healing as it relates to Sufism, or
Hmm.
you can study peacemaking and learn about peacemaking through the Sufi tradition. We also have a sound healing program. So for those people that want to become healers in this sound healing methodology, and
Okay.
we also train and work with people who need healing. So you
Okay.
don't necessarily have to come to get a degree. You
Right.
just can come because you need healing, or you spiritually want to learn more about Sufism
Right.
and take that deeper dive into your consciousness. The school runs for 6 day sessions, 3 to 4 times a year.
Hmm.
And then
Okay.
there are we call intercession assignments that you do in the meantime, along with the Sufi practices and a community of students and teachers that are helping to support you in what we call the Sufi walking. There's an introductory class that's called the Foundations, which just gives you the basic foundations. We
Mm-hmm.
teach you some of the practices and some of the foundational principles of not only Sufism, but also the spiritual healing that is part of our particular Sufi tradition.
Okay.
So you learn a spiritual healing practice as well as the Sufi practices for these for your spiritual awakening. Those foundation classes happen about every 6 or 8 weeks. So you can find out again about them by just going online at Sufi University. And we also offer a free program called the 5 C's of Sufism.
Okay.
And that is a video series as well as a little workbook exercises that you can do on your own. And those 5 C's are about consciousness and connection and clarity and communication and commitment. And each one has its own video with some exercises for you to do. And it's a very fabulous program that will give you a good, what we call taste.
Right.
Sufism.
Right.
Right.
Salima, thank you very much for taking the time and coming on the show. I think that, we talk about, longevity, and we break it down into usually 4 pillars, one being sleep, one being exercise, one being, nutrition, and then the fourth one being spiritual. And I've always found that the fourth pillar is by far the hardest, I think, to get out of your own way and try to, master some of these things, or at least if you haven't mastered it, to try to, get into it a little bit more to help you in that particular arena. So thank you for coming on and sharing this. And, before you and I connected, I had never even heard of Sufism. And I think it's probably a pretty great thing, because if you can get your ego out of your way, the weight's going to be lifted off of you right then and there. And then, if you can connect with other people without having these prejudices, that's going to be a big benefit, not only to them, but to yourself as well. So,
To the world.
yeah, exactly. We need more peace, not less, for sure, but
Exactly. Yeah.
thanks
And the
so
beauty of Sufism is it incorporates all of those things that you mentioned,
Yeah.
right? It incorporates good nutrition because there's a medical component to it.
Right.
It incorporates good sleep because, right? And so
Yep.
that's, for me, what I've learned is that Sufism is really universal and all-inclusive.
Yeah, and when I say pillars, they're all so interactive, right? I mean, they're not separate silos that don't ever talk between each other. So that's a very good point. So thank you very much, Salima. Thanks so much, and it was an honor for me to have you on the show. So thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you. I love the work that you're doing. Appreciate you.
Thank you. The power of ketones, your body's alternative fuel. The folks at Approved Medical Solutions have done it again. That's right, with their new Clean Ketones supplement. Imagine your body as a hybrid car capable of running on 2 different fuel sources. While glucose is your body's regular gasoline, ketones are like switching to an efficient, clean-burning alternative fuel. I would say rocket fuel. When your body produces ketones, whether through fasting, low-carb dieting, or intense exercise, something remarkable happens. These molecular powerhouses cross the blood-brain barrier, providing crystal clear mental energy that many describe as enhanced focus and clarity. But ketones aren't just brain fuel. They're efficient energy sources for your heart, muscles, and other vital organs. Think of them as premium-grade fuel that produces less metabolic waste than glucose processing. Research suggests ketones may offer additional benefits: reduced inflammation, improved metabolic health, and even potential neuroprotective properties. They're particularly interesting for athletes seeking sustained energy and anyone looking to optimize their cognitive performance. The best part? Your body is naturally designed to produce and use ketones. It's not about completely replacing glucose, it's about metabolic flexibility, giving your body the ability to thrive on both fuel sources. Whether you're interested in mental clarity, athletic performance, or overall health, understanding and harnessing the power of ketones might be your key to unlocking new levels of well-being. Approved Medical Solutions Clean Ketone Formula contains nature-identical ketones. These ketones provide the same fuel as those produced through a keto diet. Approved Medical Solutions Ketone Formula does not contain sugar, caffeine, or 1,3-butane-diol, and they are not ketone salts. I've been using them routinely now and notice a minimum of a 10% increase in exercise performance. By diving deep into cutting-edge research and real-world applications with leading scientists and practitioners, the Pod of Inquiry illuminates the science-backed path to enhancing your mind and body's potential. You can find us on all platforms, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Please join us. I hope you all enjoyed today's show and got some truly empowering knowledge out of it. You can always follow up on anything we talked about in the show notes found at our website, podofinquiry.com. If you think you might have tickled just a few neurons inside that cerebral cortex, please spread the word to your friends and colleagues and tell them that they need to get spelunking. Also, if you can take a minute to leave a review on your podcast provider of choice, and especially Apple Podcasts, that would greatly help the show and be so appreciated, provided it's positive. And if not, then just keep your pie hole shut and stay down in that cave. Let's keep spelunking.
This podcast is designed for informational purposes only and does not constitute any medical or surgical consulting advice or imply a development of any physician-patient relationship. The opinions of guests who are featured on the show are not necessarily the opinions of Dr. Barrett or the production team. This podcast is owned solely by Barrett Medical and Surgical Media, LLC. While the show is highly oriented for physicians and healthcare providers, anyone interested in the improvement of human performance and understanding will find this a welcome goblet to sip from, or guzzle. However, no representation or warranties are made in any way whatsoever on this podcast for any products, techniques, or other things discussed. Invited guests are not vetted by the Pod of Inquiry for their qualifications and may have a direct or indirect financial interest in what they present and discuss on the show. The Pod of Inquiry disclaims any responsibility from anything taken from the show and used personally or professionally. It is a responsibility of the listener to perform their own due diligence prior to the implementation of any ideas, products, techniques, or anything talked about on the show.